Welcome to the Trailblazing Texas podcast, where we embark on a journey through our diverse Texas landscapes and breathtaking trails while always engaging with our amazing Texas hiking community. So settle in, tighten up those bootlaces, and get ready for the thrilling tales awaiting for you on this episode.
So I did this experiment a couple of years ago, and I took duct tape, and so I took white duct tape and I taped it around my ankles, but upside down, right, so that the sticky part was on the outside. Because we were talking about ticks and the women's hiking groups, and I was just curious, and someone else had done it, and it's like, okay, well, I'm going to try this, right? And so I put this white duct tape around both of my ankles and went for a hike, like a normal hike. I think we're at trailhead number 8. And we did, the 10-mile loop or whatever the loop is, and came back and pulled off the tape, and sure enough, there was one tick on there. Only one, but there was still a tick on there. Yeah.
Man, I'm glad that you said 1 and not 50. But
it's only one.
I've just had that one, and it's just like hogs, probably nothing will ever happen. It's just I just have that spider webs. I'll go through those all day, whatever. Clear them out for everybody that's hiking behind me. But man, just the ticks and the hogs, I just and on the Lone Star hiking trail, I've had not this past weekend, but the weekend before that on Trail 6, I ran into a hog. I just saw the back end of it as it was running off. And there was one other time, it had to have been a group of about 30 or 40 hogs because the noise that they made. But it was like 5:30 in the morning, still dark, headlamp. And, I'm trucking through the trail, and, you hear this kind of rumbling, and I just stop and look. And then all of a sudden you just hear like a herd of hogs just taking off. And it's just like the coyote, like, yeah, it's kind of creepy and it is what it is. Probably nothing will ever happen, but I just can't get past that.
Right. I think for the most part, they're just going to scurry away. They don't want any part of you, just like you don't want any part of them. So I think for the most part, they're just going to, take off.
So last question, just kind of you as a hiker before we get into the Lone Star hiking trails section. And I'm sure this probably happens a lot for you, guiding the hikes and stuff. But what advice or tips would you give to beginner hiker or backpackers that want to get into this hobby and love that we have?
I would say, start with something local, right? And then start with a group or some sort of, like, even just with the state parks. The state parks offer guided hikes, right? And I would start with that. And then, really, I think a lot of it is learning your distance. Like if you have an office job and you barely ever get out there and hike, or you don't get out there and walk a lot, like, you really don't know what kind of distance you're physically able to do. And I'd hate for a new hiker to get out there and think that they can do a 10-mile hike without walking around their block regularly, So I think starting local, start with some small hikes, start with just 3 to 4 miles, or, right, just to kind of test it out, see how you feel, see how your feet feel, and then grow and progress from there. Like, I know there's a lot of people who live in the Houston area, and then they go to Colorado, let's say, because that seems to be a lot of our favorite places to go. And then they'll try hiking there, and then they think that hiking is so hard. And it's like, well, of course it's hard. You don't even walk around the block. Why do you think you can go and hike 10 miles? I don't understand, right? It's like going to the gym and trying to do an hour-long workout with heavy weights, and you're just not going to manage it well. So I think learning your distance would be my biggest advice. Yeah.
But there's so
and
much
baby steps.
Yeah. I always say, like, start with what you have and what you can get to,
Yeah.
and just go do it. And,
Yes.
there's so much that you're going to learn about yourself, how far you can push yourself, what your water consumption is. Uh, if you ate a breakfast and went out hiking, and then you didn't eat a breakfast and went out hiking, how does that impact you? There's so much that you can learn, and also to enable you to be successful. And it's funny you say Colorado. I'm currently in a 3-part series that's already edited and is publishing. On Thursday, part 3 will happen. Is I started having these episodes about places where we hike. So we go to Colorado, we go to New Mexico, we go to Washington State, we go to Arizona and hike. And kind of like, what does it mean for us as a Texas hiker to go to these places? Elevation sickness, or you want to do a 14er, well, you better make sure that you start early, because thunderstorms, you need to get below tree line before noon typically. Or going to a trailhead and you want to do a 14er and you're not there by midnight, you're not parking anywhere close to the trailhead. They start so early. So just kind of these tips and tricks, and what does it mean for us, and what should we expect, and safety and all that stuff. But it's been a lot of fun. And so the first part of this kind of series is with Colorado. So part 3, is dropping Thursday. I just yesterday recorded with one of my best friends. He lives in Washington State. And then I think next weekend is New Mexico, and then the following weekend is Arizona. But just and it was funny because I was just driving to go rock climb, and it just dawned on me that in some of these places, especially Colorado, Mexico, sometimes you see Texas license plates more than you see the local license plates.
Uh-huh.
And we cause a lot of problems for their search and rescue. And so yeah, it's really getting to be a pretty cool series. And but yeah, so it would be interesting. You probably experience a lot of beginner hikers, and certainly have some really good advice, for people that want to get and to do the things that we love to do.
Absolutely. I do want to add, in
Hmm.
regards to, because you mentioned elevation and altitude, right? And so one thing that I've learned from climbing or training to climb Kilimanjaro was that, the heat in Texas, the heat and humidity in Texas, has a similar physiological response on our body that altitude does. So all of my training that I've done for Kilimanjaro, I've done it all in Texas at almost sea level, right? And I've been pretty successful. I've been able to summit 3 times with, you know, minimal issues, let's say.
Yeah.
And it's all because, I've been able to get out and hike during the summer months in Texas, where it is the heat and humidity, and you have to work on building up your tolerance, just like you would if you, let's say, were, going out to Colorado and working on 14ers and using that to build up your tolerance to altitude. So I just wanted to mention that you can train for elevation or for altitude, at sea level.
That's really interesting. I've never thought of that.
Yeah.
But and it's also funny when you talk about our heat, and getting out there. I always complain, oh, it's too hot, it's too hot. I don't want to go out. But yeah, I'm like, if I was in it every day, it would be no big deal. Like when I was a kid, I was playing outside every day, and it was perfectly fine.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Just have to. I think we just have to. Sometimes we just have to suck it up and go do it. And
Absolutely.
rebuild up your tolerance to it, because not everybody can handle hours of it. Right. Yeah.
No, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, so now as we transition into one of our favorite trails, can you give us just like an overview of the Lone Star Hiking Trail?
Sure. So the Lone Star Hiking Trail is 96 miles long, runs from just north of Montgomery near the town of Richards, Texas, and goes all the way to Trailhead 15, which is very close to Cleveland, Texas. It
Hmm.
runs over the top of Huntsville State Park, and Huntsville State Park has an access point, and then it goes across 45 and then connects back into the wilderness. and it has a few miles of road walks, which a lot of people don't like the road walks. Um,
Did you say a few miles or a
a,
ton of miles?
I don't think it's a ton of miles, but the one
Oh,
section,
I hate this, the worst
yeah,
part.
down the highway, that down 150, yeah, that one's pretty
Yep.
long. Yeah, but yeah, yeah. Some people skip the road walks. You can get a shuttle. There are a couple of people who do shuttle service for the trails, so you just have to make sure you have arrangements for that before then. And then also, the Lone Star Hiking Trail has several connecting loops. Trailhead 8, which is on the east side of 45, just north of New Waverly. It's about a 9 or a 10 mile loop. And then over at the Little Lake Creek Wilderness area, close to Trailhead 1 and Trailhead 3 and 4, they all connect via different loops, which is really, really cool.
And then just kind of how it's broken up, like trailheads, campsites.
Sure. So there's several trailheads that give you access to the Lone Star Hiking Trail. Trailhead 1 and 2 are over and Trailhead 3 are part of the Little Lake Creek Wilderness area.
Hmm.
There's a Trailhead 4, but that isn't officially on the Lone Star Hiking Trail. It actually connects, it's a trail connector to the Lone Star Hiking Trail. And then we
Okay.
have Trailhead number 6, which is one of my favorites. And so that will take you, it's a fairly big parking lot or parking area for that trailhead. And it's right on FM 1375. And from that parking lot, it's just a 0.6 mile to Lake Conroe. And then the trail will continue over to Stubblefield Campground, which is a first come, first served campground, which is a nice camping area.
Yeah.
Um, and then, of course, it goes over the top of Huntsville State Park.
So then it's Trailhead 7 that's at 45.
Yeah, it's right at 45. It's access on the feeder road going southbound. So
Yeah.
it's right in between Huntsville, the town of Huntsville, and Huntsville State Park, the access road to Huntsville State Park. There's also bike trails right there too.
Yeah. I think one thing about the Lone Star Hiking Trail that's pretty spectacular is you really have the freedom to customize really anything that you want to do. It's, I think, in total 15 trailheads. And so, like mileage, overnight, 2 day, 3 day, 4 day backpacking trips. If you
Yeah.
want to yo yo it, so 96 miles there and then 96 miles back, like you can really have the freedom to do whatever you want. What is your opinion if someone is through hiking but they don't do the road walks?
Yeah. Well, then technically it's not a through hike, is it?
Thank
Right?
you.
Like
Thank you.
if you haven't done the whole thing, then you just haven't done the whole thing, right?
Yep.
Right. Yep.
Exactly. Thank you.
If
And
that's the route, that's the route.
that's right. And
Yeah.
for someone to want to get connected into our community, what do you think is the best way? I was looking today, like the Facebook group has 19,000 members.
Isn't that great?
That's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah. I think the best way to get connected with the trail or with the club.
Uh, let's say the trail and then the club. So talk about the trail, a new hiker.
I would say, I would start with the Lone Star Hiking Trail Club. Like, go to their website,
Hmm.
definitely, and then learn. All the maps are on there. The group hikes are on there. I think you can still order the book. So there's a Lone Star Hiking Trail guidebook. I
Hmm.
think when I first started learning the trail, I got the book right away, and that's been an invaluable resource for helping me learn the different sections and the diversity and where the trailheads are and where you can access different areas of the trail. I think even for like food drops or water drops, because you know I don't particularly care for all the water sources that are on the Lone Star Hiking Trail. I
I don't care for any of them. I cash.
I would cache, yeah. I would highly recommend caching water for sure. Although I have, so Niederhorfer, I will filter but I'm pretty paranoid about my water, so I'll boil it and I'll water treat it and I'll filter it, and then I'm comfortable drinking it. But
Yeah.
Nido Horfra I will filter out of. Um, so that's a big bonus for finding Nido Horfra and getting out there. But yeah, water sources I wouldn't rely on them at all.
Yeah.
Definitely caching. Yeah. Yeah. So for a new person getting connected with the trail, I would definitely, yeah, go to the Lone Star Hiking Trail Club website. And so it's lonestartrail.org, and check out the resources that they have. And then even start with a couple of group hikes just to become familiar with what you're getting into. And then, and then get out there and have fun. And don't assume that everything's a loop. I find that people will get out onto the Lone Star hiking trail and they think it's going to loop back, and it doesn't.
It only loops back if you turn around.
Right. There's one gentleman was telling me, said my wife and her friend went out there, and they were out there for a couple of hours and they just didn't know how to get back. You got to just turn around and come back. Yeah, turn around and come back.
Oh
That's how
my
you get
gosh,
back. Yeah.
that would be funny. And so in your opinion, in like into like someone that wants to get out on the trail, the Lone Star hiking trail, how well marked is the trail, and what maps or apps that you find are most helpful, for navigating and these types of things for the trail?
I think so. Downloading the maps from the Lone Star Hiking Trail helps quite a bit. I've used All Trails several times.
Hmm.
It seems to work pretty good. There's a few other apps out there. I think Trail Forks was
Maprika.
Maprika, but I think they're changing. I thought I heard something about Maprika was changing.
Mm,
Um, and I think they were going with maybe Trail Forks or another one. I forget what it was.
okay.
Um, but then for the most part, though, I would say the Lone Star Hiking Trail is very well marked. Um, Now, I know some of the volunteers for the club, they're very diligent about getting out there and hiking, and they always hike with extra trail markers. And whenever they feel like it needs an extra marker, they'll put an extra marker up. Now, with this recent storm with Beryl, I think some of the trail has changed a bit, or trees have been fallen, and people have been going around different trees. And I think we've lost some of our trees that had trail markers on them. So I would definitely um, not rely 100% on the trail markers. Whereas, probably a year ago, I would have said, you know what, those trail markers are there. You're going to see them 100% of the time. All you have to do is just kind of look, and you're going to see a marker, and that's going to keep you on track. But now with Beryl, the club hasn't been able to get out to all the sections that they normally would. And so I think we definitely need those navigation apps to help us through.
And so when for your guided hikes, is there anything essential that is either noted or you talk to hikers about that make sure that you have this, when you come out to the trail and start hiking?
Yeah, so water and snacks, right? Definitely have
Yeah.
that. As a hike leader, I carry a small first aid kit with me. And then we always have a leader and then a co-leader who's the sweep. And then there's usually somebody at the trailhead waiting for the group. And we do a head count before and a head count after. So we're as diligent as we can be. And then, but yeah, people have to take responsibility for themselves also,
Right.
make sure that they have enough water for the day hike, and some snacks also. So
Have you ever had any kind of like situations where, I don't know, like not emergency, but medical situations or issues that arise during a hike?
the yeah, I've had issues, not necessarily with a club hike, but it could
Mm,
have easily have been a club hike where some people, they just get overheated and they need to sit down and rest. So we make sure that we take rest breaks regularly. um, or, slips and falls. So,
Yeah.
sometimes it gets muddy out on the trail, and especially if you're dealing with non-experienced hikers, they might not have appropriate footwear, right? So they
Yeah.
might have just their tennis shoes on that might not have good grips, and so if you have a muddy bank that you have to climb up, you might have people slipping and falling because of that. But I haven't had any serious injuries, um, just rest breaks needed. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think it's just watching the group, um, and being aware of people's hiking abilities and just slowing down when you feel like the group needs to slow down. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
how many volunteers are there that lead this group?
Gosh, well, so you have the main club leadership, right? So you have our club president and vice president, secretary, treasurer, membership coordinator, things like that. And then we have several members who lead hikes regularly or have volunteered to lead hikes regularly, and that's where I fall in. And then we have regular trail maintenance leaders who will go out and organize trail maintenance days. And those are usually on Tuesdays or Saturdays, is the
Yeah.
pattern that I've seen. And yeah, so to get onto a trail maintenance day, I would really highly recommend anybody who's interested in the trail to, sign up, be a member of the club, right? It's only like $20 a year, and you're basically donating your money to help with, gas and maintenance on the trail, right? Maybe some work
Yeah.
gloves and a hard hat. But yeah, become a member. You'll want to, if you want to do a trail maintenance day, you have to have a volunteer service agreement with the National Forest. And so once you sign up to be a member of the club, you'll get an email about the volunteer service agreement, and then you sign up. Once your agreement is approved, then you can sign up for a trail maintenance day, and they're interesting and they're fun, and it helps you see a whole nother portion of what's involved in the Lone Star Hiking Trail.
Yeah, and that's something that I've really kicked myself. Like, I make use of this trail. I through hiked it. I hike it every Sunday, and I'm like, yeah, I go out and pick up more trash than will fit in my Outback. But
Yeah.
the hard part where probably the most help is needed is in the maintenance, the trail maintenance and stuff. And I
Mhm.
always say, yeah, I'm gonna do it. Yeah, I'm gonna do it. And I just never do it. So that's something that I'm really gonna focus this hiking season is get that
But
happening. And
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
So
because they do a lot of wonderful work for sure.
oh, definitely. And it seems it's always the same core group of volunteers who keep on going out there. And so it would be great to have some new people get out there
New
and get on the
blood.
trails. New blood, yes, absolutely.
Yes.
They will welcome you with open arms. And
Mhm.
but it all starts with, that volunteer service agreement that has to be approved first.
Yeah.
That's part one, and then start watching out for the work days. Yeah,
Yeah, I was
yeah,
hiking one time and they were out there actually with a lawnmower mowing,
yeah,
and I was like, "You brought a lawnmower all the way out here? Oh my
right.
gosh." And maybe they cut in on like a first Forest Service road, but I was just like,
Yeah.
"Oh my gosh."
Right. I know, it's crazy. And same with, yeah, they do have special access to some of the Forest Service roads. So when they get
Yeah.
approval to do a certain section, they can, it helps to have those Forest Service roads for access for sure. Yeah.
So I'm a new hiker, backpacker. I want to join one of your guided hikes. How should I prepare physically for the hike, for the trail? What would be your recommendations?
I would recommend, just put on your shoes and get outside your front door and, go for a walk, right? Um, start with like 2 or 3 miles, depending on what your fitness level is, and work yourself up to 5 or 6 to 7 miles, just so that you get a feel of what that distance is like, especially if you haven't been hiking or walking or doing any sort of distance type event. Most people should be able to comfortably do 3 to 4 miles. But most of our hikes are between 5 and 7 miles long. So I would really encourage people to get out there and and get moving. And hiking in the woods is always harder than hiking on pavement, just because you're stepping over roots and rocks and stepping around trees, and sometimes you have to duck under things or climb over stuff. So that always makes it more challenging. But for the most part, yeah, just get out there and start walking. Start with that.
Yeah, okay. And
Yeah.
what would you consider, especially like if it's someone new, what would be the best time in the season for them to engage in such activities on our trail?
Oh, definitely. Um, what is it? October through
Mhm.
April, May.
Yeah.
Um, you know, trying to stay away from the heat of the summer,
Hmm.
especially if you're new. Um, it'd be much more enjoyable in the cooler temperatures rather than trying to deal with, distance and a new trail and trying to deal with the heat at the same time.
Yeah. And what's amazing, well, was amazing for me is I don't think of our region where we live very like, when the trees change colors and all that stuff. But you go out on Trailhead 6 around first part of November after it's been a little bit, had some cold nights. It is spectacular.
Nice. Yeah. I think
It is beautiful.
yeah, last year it was absolutely gorgeous. I remember. Yeah.
Yeah, I have
Yeah.
some pictures that were people were like, "Man, where is that in Eastern United States?" Or I'm like, "No, this is like an hour away from here." And they're like, "What?"
What? I know. Yeah. Yeah. Some years are we get a better color change in the leaves than others. I don't think it happens every year, but last
No.
year I remember it was really, really spectacular and beautiful. And I'm hoping for the same this year too. So it's coming soon. Coming
Yeah,
soon.
absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, as you're guiding, what do you think are some of the most common challenges that hikers face on the hikes, and what is maybe like what they should be looking out for?
I think a common challenge is probably just the distance, and getting over the fear of that a critter is going to jump out and get them. Like nothing is going to jump out and get you. The
Yeah,
trails are, like, yes, we live in Texas, and yes, there are things out there, but for the most part, I think it's pretty safe hiking where we're at. I think the biggest danger is probably roots and trees, right? Like,
yeah.
watching your footing and stepping over those roots.
Yeah. And I think also what shocked me, and it shouldn't shock me. I'm Texan. I was born in Texas. If you're on the trail, there could be a chance where you're going to see someone with a gun.
Oh yes, yes.
Through hunting
Especially in
season,
mhm.
or yeah, like my wife and I were on Trailhead 6, and what's funny is we were hiking, and I hope this gentleman's not listening to the podcast, but we were hiking. I was hiking the weekend before, and met this guy, and we were talking, and um, anyway, so I we talked for about 30 minutes, and I got home, and I was telling my wife, I'm like, man, I met this guy, and he kind of gave me, the heebie-jeebies. And so we laughed about it. Yeah, whatever. And the next weekend I took her out because the leaves were changing. Wasn't hunting season yet. And so we're walking, and I'm just looking down the trail, and we had just kind of hit the section where it dumps into the lake, and we're heading kind of along the side of the lake, and you could really see kind of like a good distance. Well, I see that guy, and I'm told my wife, I'm like, "Hey, there's that guy I was telling you about," and he's walking towards us. And so we're walking and walking, and he's just walking carrying an AR-15. And it's not hunting season, it's not even on a strap. He's just like carrying it. And
Oh no,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and for her it was a little uneasy. But yeah, I mean, I think that's, and especially if you're hiking in deer season, you're gonna see people camoed up, in I think close to Trailhead 1, maybe even a little bit past to Trailhead 2. There's a deer stand up in the trees, probably
Mhm.
about 3 or 400 yards away from the trail that you may see that bow hunters. So just just
That's a
you
very
know
good point. Yeah.
just be ready. That
That
is going to be
no,
a challenge.
yeah, yeah. And well, and so that's one of the purposes for carrying a whistle,
Yeah.
because so hog hunting is actually allowed all year long, right?
Hmm.
So hunters can be out there all year, but they're not supposed to hunt from the trail, and they're not supposed to shoot across the trail. Now, with that said, not I don't think every hunter knows all the rules, especially depending on where they're from. But if they're local, they're going to know where the trails are. I'm assuming.
Yeah.
But yeah, so hunting is allowed all year long on the trail, especially if you're hunting hogs. There is deer hunting season. Um, I like to wear bright colors when I'm on the trail, especially during hunting season. They reckon because there are more hunters on the trail. You, they recommend that you wear something highly visible.
Hmm.
So whether it be high vis orange or high vis pink or yellow, whatever color you want to wear, it's just I think it's state law that hunters have to wear high vis orange.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and there was one time when we were on the trail. We were at trailhead number 8, and we were hiking, and we heard gunshots. And as we were hiking, we were getting closer to the gunshots. And so they were, I don't know if they were actually shooting at something or just kind of randomly shooting. But then that's when I pulled out my whistle. So I have pulled out my whistle twice, and that was one of the times. And, you just do like 3 quick blasts, and I waited a couple of seconds, and then I did 3 quick blasts again, and then they stopped, and we continued on our hike, and everything was fine.
Wow.
So
So we through hiked it when Stubblefield was closed, and so we got to the Stubblefield Bridge. We got to Stubblefield, and our friend had a kayak, so he met us there and he kayaked us across. And
oh,
so we
fun.
get into
Yeah.
this kayak, and he's kayaking us across, and all of a sudden, somebody was had to have been shooting at a hog, but we're heading across the little lake area, and this you hear this pow 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 pow, and I'm like, man, turn around. I ain't going to forget this through hike. But yeah, like I took my boss, he's from Switzerland, so the guns and how we have guns are a lot different. And we
Yes.
were at Trailhead 1, and we were heading back, and someone had just shot, and it was fairly close, and it scared him. And maybe about 10 minutes later, we get to a part of the trail, and they have a wagon that they're pulling out the deer,
Oh,
to carry it
wow.
to their trucks. And, he was
Yeah.
like, oh my God, what's happening? But
Yes.
usually, the bright colors, it was kind of funny. It was last deer season on not opening weekend, but the weekend after that, I was hiking on Trailhead 1, and I had a brand new, it was not brand new. My friend from Washington gave me this Patagonia R1, and it's like fluorescent yellow. So I'm like, oh, I'm going to bring this out on the trail. Well, you get out there, and there was some cold snaps. Well, all that berry bush, the purple berry, the beauty berry, I
The
think it's
beauty
called.
berry. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, well, all those leaves are yellow. So like I was like blending in, and I'm like, there's no
Oh,
way.
funny.
So yeah, now I have an orange shirt to wear. But yeah, that was kind of funny.
That's
Uh,
awesome. Yeah. Yeah.
So, what are your thoughts on trail conditions through the year? Do you, I guess, first off, do you offer these monthly hikes all year round?
Yes. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So I host once a month, but the club
Hmm.
hosts the second and fourth Saturday of every month. So they offer 2 hikes every month. So trail conditions, I would say before Barrel, they were excellent trail conditions. Everything's really well marked. If it's, after Barrel, there's been some trees down, and even though some of the trails are open, they're not all clear yet. So you might want to, if you are going out on the trail, I would consult with the Lone Star Hiking Trail Club, like go to the Facebook page and just say, hey, what are trail conditions like between, Trailhead 1 and Trailhead 6? Like, I think for the most part, that's pretty clear. there was one bridge over by Kelly's that needed to be repaired, and so that one little section was closed off. Um, and then, but during rainy season, some of
Oh
the
man.
trail, it's like a trough. And
Yeah.
so the water, you could be shin deep in water depending on how much rain has fallen. But if you give it a day or two, it drains off relatively quickly. And even
Yeah.
some afternoons, like if it rains in the morning, by later in the afternoon, the trail might be clear. It just depends on how much rain has fallen. But if it's been raining quite a bit, like in like storms in May or whatever, um, yeah, you might be ankle or shin deep in water in some cases. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I was gonna through hike it in 3 days this past January for my 51st birthday, and that's when we had that horrible rain. It was probably worse flooding than Beryl,
Oh
and
yeah,
I was out caching water, and I was like, oh, maybe there's a little break in the storm, but like Trailhead 7, you go under 45, and then you connect the trail like
yeah.
that road was underwater, and then
Oh
I was just like,
no,
oh yeah.
yeah.
And
No,
that
that'll be
night it started
bad.
raining again, and I canceled it, went back
Yeah,
the next or it was probably after all the flooding was done, went back and picked up what I did cache, and,
yeah,
oh, I was disappointed. But yeah,
yeah,
you get in the winter time and it starts, a heavy raining year, you might as well just wait until the
yeah.
spring until it kinda warms up because it's gonna be, um, not a fun experience.
Well, exactly, right? Nobody wants to, hike through a pond for
Yes.
96 miles. Like,
Well, yeah.
yeah.
So, in your opinion, since leading the groups and stuff, are there any sections that you deem are more, uh, maybe more difficult, more strenuous than others?
For a group,
Yeah.
um, yeah. So for the women's hiking groups, so when I lead groups for like taking some women on the hiking trail, um, I'll set up trailhead number 8 or 4-notch loop, and that'll be like a challenging hike. And it's challenging because of, the number of creek crossings that there are. I think someone counted there's like 23 creek
There's a
crossings where you
bazillion.
a bazillion of them. Yeah. And then just the distance, right?
Yeah.
It's 9 or 10 miles, whatever the actual distance is, and so that makes it challenging for us because we're just not used to the hills and the valleys and things like that. But it's a beautiful hike. That's actually one of my favorite sections is trailhead number 8 and
Yeah.
the 4-notch loop. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. That's cool. Yeah, that's probably my second favorite. Like hiking wise, it's my favorite. Uh, from a uh pretty views, it's second favorite. And the reason okay, the first favorite is Trail at 6, but the reason why it's
yeah.
the second favorite over other aspects and parts of the Lone Star Hiking Trail is, when you get to that Forest Service Road and you kind of go left and you hike maybe about 100 yards, and then you have like it looks like a little parking lot, and then you continue that section, you have those really tall pine trees that are really skinny, and you have that beauty berry bush that's in that lower, 3 or 4 foot tall, and you can just see forever. And you have just all these pine trees. I think that, when you catch it when the sun's kind of coming up and coming
Oh
through there, I
yeah.
mean, it's absolutely spectacular.
Yeah, yeah, I do love the tall pines and how you can see through it and then the light coming through. Yes, absolutely. I know exactly what you're describing. It is
Yeah,
gorgeous. Yeah,
Trailhead 1 has some, and then
yeah.
also if you're heading on Trailhead 1, that main loop kinda connects, I don't know how, maybe 20 or 30 yards from that Little Creek Wilderness Loop. If you got on that side, you could see, something similar, and you can clearly see it through the trees, but something similar where you have the tall pines and then, the low kinda ground cover. It just looks spectacular.
That's awesome. Another favorite section that I love seeing on the trail is the palmettos. Like it just looks like Jurassic World, right? You got these like huge giant palmettos, and you know only go there when it's dry. Like you don't want to go there when it's swampy because palmettos are a sign
It
that
is
it's
swampy.
swampy. Yeah, it is swampy, so it likes to hold water over there. But it's just a really cool area to hike through when you get going through those palmetto trees. And there's a couple of sections that really have a lot of them. Like it's the southern end of the Little Lake Creek Loop Wilderness area. They have a big palmetto grove in there. And then also over on the Cleveland section, so like Winter's Bayou, that section at the very end, they have a pretty big palmetto area in there as well. So there's a few opportunities to see the giant palmettos. They're fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so for the Lone Star Hiking Trail, I don't know the actual number, but what are some of the camping options that people can expect?
Oh gosh. So there's several, and I don't know all of them, but throughout the trail, they're pretty nicely spaced out, so you can hike from one primitive campsite to the next primitive campsite. Um, and they're primitive in the sense that they might have. I believe most of them have a fire ring. They might have a very primitive bench set up, so like just a very primitive bench, like wooden. And then a lot of them will have a journal and a little mailbox. Sometimes you get trail magic in them. Some people will leave like different little snacks or things like that. There'll be a journal in there where you can record that you made it to this trailhead.
Yeah.
Um, and then it's first come, first serve. Some are bigger than others. Um, I know the one over by, it's on is it Richards Loop? I think between Trailhead 2 and Trailhead 3, there's a little pond, and
Sandy Hook. I
yeah,
think
it could
it's Sandy
be,
Hook. Yeah.
yeah, and it's got a kind of a small primitive campsite there where it's surrounded by trees, and I think that's the only one where it's like really kind of tight, and it feels like if
Yeah.
one person is in there, it's like their campsite, right? You don't really
Yeah.
feel comfortable kind of barging in. And so, but there's lots of areas to camp over by the pond too, which is in a designated spot. Um, but during hunting season, you have to stay in those designated spots. Yeah.
Yeah, I just did a quick count because
Oh, good.
do do
You
do.
got, yay.
So primitive camps, including with hunters camps, I counted 27.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a
Yeah.
lot, and so I think that's kind of what it what you were talking about earlier is get involved, in the club, download the maps because it definitely is a benefit.
Yeah. Yeah. There's lots of impromptu camping opportunities, right? Like you don't
Hmm.
always have to go to a state park and make reservations a year ahead of time or whatever the
Yeah,
requirements are just because of our population base, right? And so the thing
yeah,
about the Lone Star Hiking Trail is that you can be spontaneous and you can say, "Hey, I want to go camping this weekend." It's like, "Great." Said, put on your backpack, or even you can go to the hunters camps and just go camp at a hunters camp. And same with Stubblefield, it's all first come, first serve. So you can drive out to Stubblefield um, and get a spot.
yeah. There's Stubblefield that's like a real camp. You know, they have bathrooms, showers,
Yes. Yeah.
and then Double Lake.
Yes. Double Lake
Um,
Recreation Area. I
yeah,
believe
and
they're switching to first come, first serve too. I think they just switched into new management. Um, I
okay,
don't I don't know exactly all the details on it, but I know that whole area was shut down because of Beryl, and I don't know
yeah.
where they're at right now. Yeah.
I used to be, I used to hate the reservation system. I used to
Hmm.
first come, first serve because I had it down pat to go to Guadalupe Mountains. And then I got there and I one time I didn't get a camping spot. And so I'm like, okay, reservations. And then I figured out a little trick to do the reservations where I guarantee that I get a spot. So
Oh, good.
yeah, so
Good.
I'm not sure how I feel about it yet. But yeah, it's a whole lot less headaches than what they experience in Washington or Colorado or New Mexico. Well, I think New Mexico you have a lot of BLM land, so you know if if you're into the primitive stuff, you should always find a place. But yeah, like Colorado and Washington, trying to get a reservation and figure all that stuff out, I was completely overwhelmed.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So what about, and also kind of relates back to guiding groups and stuff. How can hikers, or how do you enforce kind of like these leave no trace principles?
Um, Probably just leading by example,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, I think just leading by example and letting people know, if they need to go to the restroom, you're supposed to do it so far away from a water source, or, go in that direction, just directing people. Um, Watching out for, I think most people who come on the group hikes, they're not throwing their orange peels on the ground. But if somebody does, I would direct them as to, okay, so we need to pack it in and pack it out.
All right.
Um, I could be more diligent about at the beginning of the hike, just, telling people to pack it in and pack it out, right? Not to leave
Mhm.
anything out on the trail. Um, I think for the most part, people are pretty mindful, good stewards of our environment, especially the ones who come on group hikes because they want to learn and they want to experience it. Um, yeah, I guess that's about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then for the hiker and stuff, I mean, the water sources, like for me, and I'll just kind of kick this off. Like I personally don't, there's a lot of ponds, there's a lot of potential seasonal water sources. I mean, once you get on the trail, you'll start seeing like these little ravines that you're crossing that may be dry, but or there's pockets of water. But a lot of the, especially I would guess the west part of the park, you're probably not going to get, like a whole lot of permanent water. And I'm just thinking like you would get some at, Lake Conroe, and then maybe again at, well, you would hit Stubblefield. You would have some, probably clean water at the campsite. But yeah, like
At
I
Huntsville,
yeah,
Huntsville State
Huntsville.
Park. Yeah.
If you're gonna hike into it at Double Lake, you would get, probably you could filter that water or get some potable water. Um, and then I don't know after that, like not until you get around the San Jacinto River where that you would definitely have some permanent water. So like I always cache, of course day hiking I'm carrying my water, but yeah, I'm not filtering any of that.
No, I agree. I agree 100%. I wouldn't. Yeah. I If I were through hiking, I would definitely be caching water. Um, like you said, Lake Conroe, Stubblefield, uh, San Jacinto River, like, I don't know, they're pretty murky, right? And you also have a lot of farms that run into the creeks, and so you get a lot
Yeah.
of the farm, like the fertilizer and the cows, and just the agricultural runoff in general. And I don't think, no matter how much filtering you do, there's still, I think, stuff that I wouldn't want to ingest in there. So yeah, definitely recommend caching water. Yeah.
Yeah, and also like to the listeners, they won't be able to see this, but I printed out the maps, I laminated them, but also put on the back just notes like where I found water, if it was good water, dirty water, possible campsites, and hopefully when people are, especially kind of being on their own, that outside of an app on their phone that they're carrying a paper map, but it can be invaluable.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you need some sort of backup, um, rather than just using your phone for your navigation. Um, Even for, I think the maps would probably be best. I've carried my book, like the whole book, but that gets to be a little heavy and detailed. um,
Yeah.
but a paper map is definitely. the way to go. Yeah.
Okay. And have you through hiked it yet?
No, not yet.
You
I plan
have
to do that.
not?
I have not. I've hiked
Oh,
every section, but I haven't
yeah.
through hiked it yet. I've always been working. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
I can do it
So
this year.
what would be your optimal, if you've thought about it, what would be your optimal duration of the through hike, do you think?
Oh gosh. I would love to kind of slack pack it. So in the
Mhm.
sense of, having, you know, um, I'm not going to make my husband do all the work. So I'll like, I'll set up camp like 3 days. I would love to do it in 3 days. I think that would be a lot of
Yeah,
fun and it would be a good challenge. And
absolutely.
yeah, start at Trailhead One. Go. I haven't mapped it all yet. Probably Stubblefield if I can make it to
Yeah,
Stubblefield in one day. Have a tent already there and set up. So that I could just crash, get up, and then go to the next one, and then get up and go to the next one. So yeah, that would be
nice.
ideally how I would like to do it, just for the challenge of it, and then getting the through hike done. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think so. We've done it. We did 16 miles a day, and three of the people that I was with were brand spanking new to hiking and backpacking. So it was a ton of fun. And this past January when I was going to do it and got canceled, my goal was 3 days.
Oh yeah.
And yeah,
Where
so
would you
it's
have
it's
camped? Where would you
so
camp?
yeah, I can email you the plan. So I have a plan for, I think
Okay.
it was like 5.5 days, one for 4 days and one for 6 or 3 days. And so it was past I think the first campsite was past Trailhead 7. You
Oh,
go
okay.
under 45, and then like it's just that you're in
Evelyn.
the
Yeah.
woods just for that little loop, and
Yep.
there's that primitive camp. I think that was the
Oh
first
yeah.
night.
Yep.
So it was like a
Gotcha.
little over 30 miles. But I'll definitely my itinerary, but I had it, where I was going to cache water, how much I was going to carry, um, for a 3 day trip. But yeah, that will definitely be my goal. If we decide not to try to do it in 2 days, the 3 days will definitely be my goal. Yeah,
Very awesome. Yeah, and it depends on trail openings too this year, so we'll have to keep an eye on that. Yeah,
yeah.
they're
And what
getting
would
there though.
like? Is there a sign that says this section is closed? I guess at the trailheads and.
They so at the Lone Star Hike and Trail website, there is a link for what sections are open. Like there'll be a map, and it shows a certain section is open just by color coding.
Mhm.
Um, yeah,
Okay. Yeah, and I don't even I know that there was 2 sections towards the eastern part that were closed, but I don't know when they were projected to be open.
I think
Mhm.
they were waiting for, and it may already have been done. They were waiting for. They were going to log it because so many trees were down in the one section, like Four Notch Loop, for example, like that section over there. There were so many trees down. Instead of like letting trail maintenance go through and just try to open up the trail, they
Yeah.
decided they wanted to go in and salvage the wood out of there. And it was like something like 30% of the trees were down in that section. And so that's um, where they kind of deem it necessary or plausible that they would go in and salvage the wood. And so that needs to happen quickly because the longer that the tree is down on the ground, the longer or the quicker it starts to rot or whatever. And so they want to get those
Yeah.
trees out of there so it's salvageable. So that's going to happen pretty quick. And then once that salvage has been done, then the trail maintenance people can get in there and do their trail maintenance.
And that's great, like you said, the 4-notch loop, you get into the 4-notch loop, and I guess it's you take a right, and I guess I don't remember if that's yeah, I think that's the Lone Star Hiking Trail, and it's not the loop part, but I always go the loop
Uh huh.
section and then hit the Lone Star coming back. but I
Yeah.
went the other way, and it was after a windstorm, and I it looked like a bomb went off in there, like the
Yeah.
trees that they had lost. It was absolutely incredible to see that many trees that were down.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
And I've
it
seen
was.
that. Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing. And then it's mostly all taken care of by volunteers. I know the Forest Service will go in there and they'll clear out some of the bigger stuff because the volunteers just don't have the equipment to be able to go in and take care of some of the bigger trees, right? But
Yeah.
um, yeah, it's an amazing an amazing thing trying to keep that trail open.
Yeah, it's and and that's why I feel guilty because like you see the pictures of the
Me
trail
too.
maintenance people, and I'm just like, all right, well, y'all are doing mowing over here. I'm gonna be hiking over here, and like really, like I can't get off my butt and pitch in, especially.
Pitch in a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, so that will
Yeah.
definitely change for me for sure.
Yeah, I'd like to
So,
encourage any of your listeners, if they're regular people on the Lone Star Hiking Trail, definitely start considering, just consider, maybe helping out on the trails once in a while. So,
well, I'm gonna
yeah,
challenge them
there you go.
to don't consider, put your money where your mouth is. Like if you enjoy the trail and it means something to you, like let's get involved.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, definitely need the people.
So I think we may have touched on this. What is your favorite section or feature of the trail and why?
Oh gosh. So I have three favorite sections. Three, yeah. So I have
Yeah.
three. Trailhead one because of the purple wildflowers in the summertime. I love that loop. It's absolutely gorgeous. And then Trailhead number six, of course, leading into this gorgeous view of Lake Conroe, and then it continues on to Stubblefield. And then trailhead number eight. Oh, no, I got four favorite sections. Okay, trailhead number eight, because challenge of the ravines, right?
Yep. Yep.
And the distance, the 10-mile loop. And then the other section is the southern end of the Little Lake Creek Wilderness area where it's got like the giant palmettos.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah, that was pretty cool. Oh, I got one more. Okay,
Yeah.
it's a
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
cool trail. All right, trailhead number seven. That's where the dogwoods are blooming. So that's usually in February. The
Oh
dogwoods
yeah.
bloom. Yeah. So trailhead number seven. Yeah, and that's the one that's right along the feeder road between Huntsville and Huntsville State Park. Yeah.
Oh. Do you
Yeah.
think we'll ever have a bridge across the San Jacinto?
That is a good question. There's a lot of factors that are going into that bridge.
Yeah.
Um, I believe that last I heard, there needs to be an environmental study done um,
Hmm.
by um, by some sort of biologist that's approved by the National Forest, and so that study needs to get done. And I believe they have approval for a bridge, or they have a grant for a bridge. It's just being held up by other priorities. And
Yeah.
will it ever happen? I don't know.
Yeah. There's a lady, and it's funny because remember, like I was telling you, I was through hiking. Her name's Kim. Um, and she made posts on the Lone Star Hiking page that we're a part of. Uh, she was trying to through hike, and she has done everything, every hike. She right now she's in Europe hiking. She's done all the long trails, and she's probably our age. And so I had set out all my caches, and then all the rain happened, and I was going back to pick up what I had already cashed, and she made a post, about the water and stuff, and I messaged her. I'm like, look, I have these caches if you want to just use them, and she was like, oh yeah, so I had taken pictures and GPS locations and sent them to her, like just so I could make sure I could remember where they were at whenever I
Uh-huh.
was through hiking, and ended up like this. She had on one of her social media accounts like 65,000 followers. Like, she
Wow.
was like yeah, and she was on our trail, through hiking, she was heading to go hike the Arizona trail, and, she was just passing through and found out about the Lone Star Hiking Trail and, and decided to hike it. No, it was just, I don't know how I got off on that, but it was just neat to have someone that has hiked so much and what she was talking and saying about our trail and stuff like that and using the cash that I put out. It was just kind of funny.
Oh, that's awesome. So was she
Yeah.
able to, did she swim across the Sender Center or was she
That's
at a
what I
bridge?
was gonna tell you. She swam across it.
Did she? Yeah.
I've hiked across it and I'm like, there's no way. But all that water that we had,
Uh-huh.
she goes, I walked up and down, there was no bridge, there was no down trees. So yeah, I just swam across it. And then there's a picture of her like drying out everything. That's why I
Oh,
brought it
goodness.
up. Yeah, she
Yeah.
swam across it. I'm like, man, I don't know if I would have done that. Like it's
Well,
with that water
that's,
moving. Yeah.
yeah, I know. That's determination, right? But
Yes.
yeah, you got to think of your own safety. Yeah.
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 But
But with,
it was kind of funny too.
yeah,
Like she just goes, yeah, I swam across it. It was awesome.
that's awesome.
So kind of going like in I don't know, you definitely would have some insight on this. We have a wonderful shuttle service that supports our trail. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So I've never used the shuttle service. I know we have a couple of people who
Mm-hmm.
do regular shuttle service for people. I can only say from what I've heard from other people who have used the shuttle service that the service that well, the one lady Charlotte
Yeah.
Tompkins that she provides, it's just incredible. And people have been very grateful for the level of service that they've been able to receive from Charlotte and her. She's got kind of a team of people who helps her out. If she can't manage to make a shuttle, she's got some friends who will help out, and people just pay her by tips or whatever she does,
Yeah.
however they handle it. But yeah, she'll come out in the middle of the night. She'll even cache water for you if you ask. Yeah, we have some really great people out there supporting the trail.
Yeah, she's pretty spectacular and from a community like for the listeners that ever want to through hike or hike out here, you have to join the club. You should join the Facebook page because I'm part of some other states' Facebook pages, and you start getting into 14ers and mountaineering or climbing or some of the harder stuff, and you have a lot of elitist attitudes like, oh, I can't believe you would ask that kind of question. And I've never seen it as part of our group, our community that supports the Lone Star Hiking Show. Everybody's positive. And yeah, you
Hmm.
need a right. Like I think Charlotte even has an RV that you can stay at if
She
just take
does,
a
yeah,
0 day.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's definitely it is like a kind of like a look and feel of one of the long trails with the trail angels, trail magic. Everybody's so willing to help. Um, I tried to have a podcast episode with all the Lone Star Hiking Trail Angels and people that are shuttling service, but everybody was too scared.
Oh, funny,
Yeah,
funny.
yeah.
Yeah, there's nothing to be scared of.
No, no.
Yeah.
So kind of like as we start to kind of wrap up, uh, can you tell us a little bit about, like we talked about at the very beginning of the episode, the volunteer foundation that you guys are kind of kicking off and that you're kind of like in the the beginnings of and kind of what's all that about and what you guys are doing.
Sure. So the Lone Star Hiking Trail Foundation, it's kind of the brainchild of our executive director. It's Thomas Chappell, and so his his idea is to, well, we created this foundation. We just became an official nonprofit in November of last year. And through that nonprofit, we're our goal is to go after, some of the companies that are able to donate large amounts, right? So like your regular person, we're still seeking donations from the regular Joe, of course.
Hmm.
And the Lone Star Hiking Trail Club can handle that, right? But so the idea of that foundation is to go after, like the bigger oil companies or the bigger, companies that are out there who have, money set aside to go towards donations. We just have to tell them what we're doing, what our projects are, and how they can help us, help the trail and help maintain this trail that we love so much. And so that's the idea of it. And then, of course, we're always looking for board members. So if you're involved with the club and you love the Lone Star Hiking Trail, we can give you an avenue to get involved with the foundation as well. But definitely start
Nice.
at the club level and all of that, right?
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
yeah, so that's the premise of the foundation, is to, help manage the money and to provide the funding for the things that we need, like the bridges. We have
No.
so much damage from Beryl. I forget. I think it's like 42 bridges or more that have been displaced or put out by Beryl, and so there's a lot of work that needs to be done on the trail.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah.
All right, and as we kind of wrap up, I just want to make sure to the listeners, just to kind of go over how they can get involved. First off, it's the Lone Star Hiking Trail.org, I believe.
Let me just double check
Yeah,
that real
double check
quick.
that.
Yeah.
And, so to the listeners, there is a Lone Star Hiking Trail webpage. You can get connected as a member. You can support the trail with a small donation and be a member of the club. You can also make a donation if you didn't want to be a member of the club. They're not going to turn that away. And it definitely goes into, maintaining the trail. And let me tell you, there's always something on the trail that needs to be maintained.
It's lonestartrail.org.
Okay, lonestartrail.org is
Yes.
the webpage. And then also on Facebook, there's the Lone Star. You can just look up the Lone Star Hiking Trail Facebook page. There's over 19,000 members, which was a shock to me, and it's really cool. But yeah, I would definitely, if you're in our area, so Houston, Woodland, Spring, in this area, definitely get involved, get out and hike, and support our trail. And as we wrap up, I always end an episode with two questions. And we may have touched on some of this, but it's tradition, so we're going to go with it. So,
All right.
in your opinion, what is one piece of gear that you would recommend to a new hiker or backpacker?
One piece of gear that I would recommend to a new backpacker or a new hiker. Probably water filtration.
Water
Yeah.
filtration?
Yep.
No.
Some sort of, water filtration, or even just those little water tablets. Something that will, get you out of a dire situation. Definitely.
I just got some packs and I don't have them with me or I'd show you, but it's that pack. It does 10 liters of water. So you'd have to not put so much in like for a liter, but it takes the murky water and you mix it in there and it makes everything kind of like collect into like a goo. So
Oh
like
wow.
all whatever's in the water, it puts it down into, I don't want to say a goo, but it certainly there's a
Makes it
like
heavier.
yeah,
Yeah.
like when you see uh oil and vinegar, or it's
Yep.
like that. And I don't know that I want to go out on the trail and test it out, but it's kind of pretty cool to do. So water filtration, I think for me, the one piece of gear that I would recommend, um, really anything between you and the ground is important. So like
Hmm.
shoes, but like for me, I have I'm kind of a gear snob, so I have hyperlight backpacks, Z pack tents, um, and none of that has changed the way I hike. The only piece of gear that I've ever purchased that literally changed the way I hike is that Trekker Joe's water bottle sleeve holder. To
Oh yeah.
have that water accessible. I'm not taking off my backpack. I'm not having to stop. The weight distribution, like it's really impacted me in a very 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 positive way. Last question. Same kind of scenario. So, what is the one piece of safety advice that you would give to any new hiker or backpacker?
Be aware of your surroundings and
Mm-hmm.
know where the trail goes.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So yeah, just being like aware of where you're at, and yeah, essentially knowing where the trail goes, whether you like knowing if you're on a loop or knowing that it's an out and back, just
Yeah.
knowing what you're getting yourself into. Yeah.
Absolutely. I have two pieces of safety advice that I always try to give to people. One is um, always, always, always tell somebody your itinerary, what time you're going to start your hike, what trailhead you're going to, where, what you plan to do, and what time do you expect to be back, and don't change it. And so I don't need to have anything fancy, apps or any of this stuff to tell someone, my wife or whatever, like, hey, I'm going to go to Trailhead 6. I'm going to hike to Stubblefield. I, it'll probably take me X amount of time, and then I'm going to hike back. I don't need cell service for that. I don't need anything to be able to verbally tell someone what I'm doing, and don't change it until you can confirm that that person has received the update. And for example, so I went to Trailhead 6 and it was flooded. So the first, heading to Lake Conroe, I mean, it was just underwater. So I went back to the car and I texted my wife and said, hey, I'm changing plans. I'm going to go check out Trailhead number 9 and hike, and I'll hike blah, 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 blah. Well, she never responded to my text. So I just went home. Like I didn't, like, okay, I'm not going to change my itinerary. This is what I know that she knows that I was going to do. And, it's not going to work out. So I'm going home.
Wow, good for
Um,
you. That's awesome.
yeah.
That's the way it should be.
And then,
Yep.
yeah. And then I don't need a Garmin. I don't need anything, right? I can write it down on a sheet of paper. I can verbally tell her and that's it. And then the other piece of safety advice is if you're going to get into hiking and backpacking, I always say you should be fluent. You should be a servant at at a hiking app, like a trail app. You should
Mm.
be good at a second hiking app, and then you should be, proficient at a third. So you should have at least three in your repertoire, and you should understand, like, in my neighborhood, I can go to all trails. I can download the map. I can turn off my cell service where it's just airplane mode, and I can simulate not having connection and what functionality does it have and doesn't have, and how does, can I access a downloaded map, and, start to test these. Like, you don't want to test it when you're on the Lone Star hiking trail and you realize, oh, I don't have cell service. Oh, I didn't download the map. Like, put yourself, just like neighborhood hikes,
Right.
put yourself in these situations where it's maybe a little uncomfortable. And but yeah, like, have three apps, because like all trails is good, but if I'm going to Guadalupe Mountains, it's not going to help me from what I want to do, right? I need Gaia, or I need uh backcountry navigator. I need like more of a, or I can create my own routes and stuff. So there's different situations that you can find yourself in, that maybe one app would be better than the other. But yeah, to just Don't put all your eggs in one basket and be really good at a couple and okay at the last one.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's really great advice. Um, you know, people can get themselves into trouble pretty quickly if they're
Mhm.
not familiar with what
Yeah.
they're doing. And then that's really why I like to encourage people to start local, right? Start local,
Mhm.
learn what you're learn what you're capable of, learn your distances. Don't try to go and do 10 miles your first day. Start with just a couple locally and then grow and progress from there. And then, of course, hook up with some groups and start learning more from groups. Listen to your podcast. Lots of great tips on your podcast.
Yeah.
Right?
I'll support that. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, as again wrapping this up, I want to thank you so much for coming on the podcast, for supporting the podcast. Again, like talking about the Lone Star Hiking Trail, like I wouldn't have wanted to have this episode with anybody else, and definitely I am gonna get out to one of your guided hikes
Oh, fun.
and
That would be awesome.
and experience that whole thing. Bring a bunch of merch stickers.
Oh, there you go. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Hey, I'm
Yeah.
going to have some merch stickers of my own soon. I've started a new
Really?
thing.
What was
Yeah,
that?
yeah. Well, I'm super excited. It's called Just Hike. So it's spelled Just and then Hyke. So Just Hike. And right now it's a Facebook page. I'm currently working on building the website. I
Mhm.
have a Merc page, so I've just started that.
Nice.
And I know I'm so excited. And I'm going to be doing. I'm mostly excited about. It's a pre-workout or an endurance mix for
Really?
hiking endurance. Yeah, it's called Just Hike. I'm so excited.
What?
Uh, yeah, I
So, okay,
know.
so hold on, share all the links. This is awesome.
Okay, I'll
So
share. Yes,
so I guess Facebook, they could just type in just hike or
just
just
yeah, just
yeah.
hike. Just and then
Mhm.
Hyke. So
Okay,
just
I'm gonna
hike.
put that in the episode description.
Oh, okay, that would be cool. Yeah, and
And what
then
about your merch shop? How can they access that?
I'll send you a link for that also. And
Okay.
yeah, and it's also on the Facebook page, but eventually I'll
Okay.
get it over to a proper website also. I'll get there. I'm getting there. And so
So
yeah, so it's the pre-workout drink. There's an
mhm,
electrolyte drink. There's the Merc, and then also I'm working on fitness and training tips, primarily for women my age who want to get out
right.
there and hike or walk or just be better than what they are right now. So yeah,
Oh, man,
I'm
I'm definitely gonna
excited.
is the electrolytes and stuff, is that already ready to be purchased?
It is. Yeah. It's ready to be purchased.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
Want me
check
to?
that out right after this.
Yeah. Here you go. So look. So it says
Wow.
just. Isn't that cool? There you go.
What the heck?
I know.
That
So right
oh
now,
my gosh.
isn't that exciting? I'm so excited.
Yes.
So yeah. So right now it says endurance, but I've changed the name to Just Hike. So it's going to be Just
Okay.
Hike. Yeah. And then it's a powder, right? It's a drink mix
Yeah.
like any other pre-workout drink mix or whatever, and you just pour it in your bottle. And talking about leave no trace principles, so it's better to be in bulk than individual little wrappers. So um, or reusable
And
stuff. But we'll figure that
and
out.
so that
We'll figure that out.
so that's pre-workout and electrolyte, or is there 2?
There'll be two separate ones. I don't have
Okay.
the other one yet, but yeah, there'll be two separate things. And then the pre-workout comes in two different flavors. One is watermelon. This one is fruit punch. And then the electrolytes come
Nice.
in just one flavor right now.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. I
So
know.
so
Isn't
but,
that cool though? Yeah. Yeah.
yes, but
Pre-workout specifically for hiking. Yeah.
okay, and so right now people can go to the Facebook page and order it,
Yes. Yeah.
the
Yeah. You
pre-workout.
click on, yep. Yeah. You can click on a
Okay.
link and it'll take you to my store. Yeah.
Wow. What about
Yeah.
shirts and stuff or like just hike?
Yep, there's shirts there. There's what else is on there? Shirts. There's a water bottle. I don't know, stuff like that.
That's awesome. I'm definitely gonna check this out. Created a merch store for the podcast, and it's through Printify, and I've had a blast with it, and
That's
it
awesome.
you get an order, you're like woo, like you get all excited.
That's awesome. That's exact.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. I love it.
No, I'll definitely check it out, and thanks for man. That's wonderful, wonderful news, and it's got to be exciting times for you.
It is. It is. Yeah. Yeah. Having lots of fun
Cool.
with the getting paid for hiking.
That's right.
Right.
That's what I'm trying
Yeah.
to do. Figure out that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks again. This has been a blast, and don't be a stranger. And thanks for your time, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
All right. Thank you, Jason. I appreciate you getting me on the podcast.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
All
Bye bye.
right. Thank you. Bye.
And that wraps up another exciting episode of the Trailblazing Texas podcast. We hope you enjoyed the episode today, and stay tuned for our next episode where we will pick back up where we left off and guarantee to uncover many more hiking gems and share many more tips to enhance your experience on the trail. Until then, happy trails and happy hiking.